Everything for me, my Obi Aqua strong about possible TV GH. Instead, and same, and then they can we need a channel is YouTube, a best also by the Benoit video, no share and like or comment to you and subscribe. Me no kasa odi wa ko bi drop nsa e dan se me pese me se wada je no yenko ni ko chin se me wo audio we.
Now, Sammy, many of the papers have carried it, and on page 4 of the Ghanaian Times, Ghana card as sole ID for voter registration. Minority rejects EC's proposed CI. And Julius Yapetechi reports that the minority in parliament says it will not back down on the opposition to the proposed constitutional instrument, which seeks to make the Ghana card a sole document for the purpose of registration as a voter. The caucus said if they allow the CI to pass, millions of Ghanaians will be disenfranchised in the 2024 election because they do not have the document. As part of measures to up its opposition to the CI, the caucus said it will, in the coming days, engage a broad base of Ghanaians to explain to them the repercussions on the country's democracy if the CI is not rejected. Quote, this broad-based engagement will afford us an opportunity to further explain these issues for the understanding of the Ghanaian populace. Given the critical nature of the issue at stake, and the potential of this CI to undermine our democracy and thereby disturb the peace and security of our country, the minority group will, in the coming days, be engaging a broad spectrum of stakeholders, including our development partners, faith-based organizations, traditional authorities, and civil society organizations, to get them to appreciate the issues at stake and the consequences of this. The consequences this bodes for Ghana's democracy and stability. This is according to Dr. Atufosin, the minority leader. And the media engagement comes a day after the chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Mrs. Jean Mensah, briefed the House on the CI. Mrs. Mensah told Parliament's Committee of the Whole that contrary to fears of the minority, the proposed CI will rather enhance the credibility of the Ghanaian voter register. She said it will engender confidence in the electoral process and make the registration of voters a continuous one. I wish to emphasize that this CI and its provisions are not aimed at disenfranchising eligible Ghanaians. The continuous registration process will be inclusive, as it will make it possible to capture all those who would otherwise have been excluded in a limited registration process. The use of the Ghana card as a sole means of identification will prevent foreigners and minors from getting into our voters register, more especially to prevent unqualified persons from influencing our elections and having a say as to who should govern our country. But according to the minority, the proposed CI will restrict the realization of Article 42 of the 92 Constitution, which speaks about every citizen of Ghana of 18 years or above and of sound mind having the right to vote and being entitled to be registered as a voter. Now, Sammy, according to the EC boss, one, this particular CI, and let me quote what she says the continuous registration process will be inclusive, as it will make it possible to capture all those who would otherwise have been excluded in a limited registration process. So what she's saying is that this new CI will provide for continuous registration as against a limited exercise. Then two, the use of the Ghana card as a sole means of identification will prevent foreigners and minors from getting onto our voters register, and will also prevent unqualified persons from influencing our elections and having a say as to who would govern our country. This should be laudable, plausible reasons that a responsible political party should support.
Thank you very much, Doc. I have taken my time to study the newly proposed CI that the EC is seeking to lay before Parliament in good detail. I've studied it in very, very good detail. And when I was done with my study, it was very clear to me, Doc, that the real intention behind this CI is to rig the 2024 election and nothing more.
That's a
this
allegation.
New CI, Doc, make no mistake about it, don't be deceived. This new CI is the first step in the plot by the Jean Mensah-led Electoral Commission to rig the 2024 elections. It is as simple as that. The issues are not complex to understand at all. And any objective, well-meaning Ghanaian who studies the new CI will come to this inevitable conclusion. I say so because the newly proposed CI seeks to achieve two things. Number one, to suppress and disenfranchise many eligible voters. That is the first thing it seeks to do. And number two, the new CI, the new proposed CI, seeks to enable the rigging of elections through fraudulent registrations that political parties cannot check. These are the two things this newly proposed CI seeks to achieve. You see, Doc, you've just read the claim by the chairperson of the Electoral Commission that the new CI is intended to promote continuous registration. That is the small screen they are presenting to the people of this country to deceive them about their real motive for introducing the CI. Because if you go through the new CI, there is nothing, and I'm choosing my words carefully, there is nothing about continuous registration in the newly proposed CI which is not in the existing CI. There is nothing, not a full stop, not a punctuation mark, not a phrase, not a sentence, not a word about continuous registration which is not already contained verbatim in the existing law. Look, what is the existing law on voter registration in Ghana? It is CI 91, passed in 2016. The relevant provision of that CI that provides for continuous for the period of registration. That is how that regulation is titled. Period for registration is Regulation 9 of CI 91. And let me read Regulation 9 to you. This is what it says. Period of registration. 9.1. The Commission shall register voters on a continuous basis. It is there in the existing law, passed in 2016. The Commission shall register voters on a continuous basis. Then 2 says, the Commission shall, in consultation with registered political parties, determine the modalities for the continuous registration of voters. Now 3 says, the Commission may, by notice in the Gazette. Now 3 now talks about not continuous registration. It provides for limited registration. So Regulation 9, Sub-Regulation 3 says, the Commission may, by notice in the Gazette, A, specify a period during which the registration of voters shall take place, or B, review the original period set aside for registration. So limited registration, which we've done since 1992, when we adopted multi-party democracy, has been done on the basis of Regulation 9, Sub-Regulation 3 of CI 91, which was the same regulation in CI 72 of 2012 and the many CIs that preceded it. But in terms of continuous registration, the existing law CI 91 is very clear on that under sub-regulation, Regulation 9, Sub-Regulation 1 and 2, that the Commission shall register voters on a continuous basis, and that the Commission shall, in consultation with registered political parties, determine the modalities for the continuous registration of voters. Now, Doc, I have here the newly proposed CI of the EC. There is only one provision in this newly proposed CI that talks about continuous registration, and it is Regulation 9. You know what will shock you, Doc? The newly proposed CI and the existing CI are the same. There are only 2 differences which I will discuss in a few minutes. But in fact, the table of contents is the same. The existing CI has 33 regulations. The newly proposed CI has 33 regulations. The title of the regulation and what the regulations talk about are the same. So, for example, if you take the table of contents of the newly proposed CI, Regulation 1 is qualification for registration. It is the same for the existing CI. Regulation 2 in the newly proposed one is registration centers. It is the same in the existing CI. Not a change in spelling or punctuation mark. The same, verbatim. And apart from Regulation 9, there is no other regulation in the newly proposed CI that talks about continuous registration. So let's look at the newly proposed CI. Regulation 9. 1. The Commission shall register voters on a continuous basis, word for word. 9.2. The Commission shall, in consultation with the registered political parties, determine the modalities for the continuous registration of voters, word for word, cut and paste. So when Jean Mensah tells our representatives in Parliament that, you know what, this newly proposed CI is to promote continuous registration, and it is pointed out to him by Dr. Ayine that no, the existing CI already talks and provides for continuous registration. Then she comes back to say, oh no, this newly proposed CI is seeking to mainstream, that was her word, mainstream continuous registration. What is in this newly proposed CI that seeks to mainstream continuous registration but is not in the existing CI? Not a word, not a regulation or a sub-regulation or a punctuation mark or a phrase or a sentence, not a word. So the woman is just lying. And I cannot for the life of me understand why a woman who has been promoted to such a high office, such an important office, very critical to the democracy and stability of this country, will toy with the peace and stability of this country by peddling such falsehood. It is not about continuous registration. You know what it is about? Two things. Only two things, which are in the newly proposed CI, but not in the existing CI. Number one, the existing CI, CI 91, as amended by CI 126. Specifically, Regulation 1.3 provides for identification documents for proof of nationality. Article 42 of the 1992 Constitution says that every Ghanaian of 18 years and above and of a sound mind is entitled to vote and to be registered for purposes of public elections and referenda. Now, we have a law in Ghana, CI 91 as amended by CI 126, which says that to prove that you are a Ghanaian who is entitled to be registered, this is what it says. A person who applies for registration as a voter shall provide as evidence of identification one of the following: a passport, a national identification card issued by the National Identification Authority, or one voter registration identification guarantee form as set out in Form 1 of the schedule that has been completed and signed by 2 registered voters. So this is the existing law. You can use a passport to prove your nationality, or you can use a Ghana card to prove your nationality, or you can use the guarantor form where a voter who is your relative will vouch for you, or 2 persons who are not your relative will vouch for you. Now, in this newly proposed CI, Jean Mensah and the EC are saying you cannot use Ghanaian passports as proof of citizenship or nationality. And we will not allow you to use any guarantor form as proof of your nationality. And that the only identification document that will be accepted for proof of nationality is the Ghana card. That is the first thing which is in the newly proposed CI, which is not in the existing CI. And that is why we are saying that this is unlawful. This is evil. This provision doesn't make sense. Because Article 45E of the Constitution says that the Electoral Commission shall undertake programs to expand voter registration. Article 42, I've already told you, says every Ghanaian of 18 years and above and of a sound mind is entitled to be registered as a voter. And so if you are developing guidelines or regulations for voter registration, the regulations must enhance the chance or the opportunity people have to be registered. It cannot be restricting access to registration. It should be expanding access to registration as required by Article 45E. And the Ghana card is not the only card backed by law, identification document backed by law, that can prove nationality. Look, you see, if the Ghana card was available to all Ghanaians, and all Ghanaians had a card, nobody will have any qualms with this provision. But the truth of the matter is that, according to the NIA's own data presented to Parliament by the Executive Secretary, Ken Atifua, as we speak, 2,565,705 Ghanaians 15 years and above have not been registered at all for the Ghana card. And most of them have not been registered by no fault of theirs. It is because the NIA says they lack the financial resources and the logistics to register these people, because the Kufuor Bawumia government has woefully failed to provide them with the needed financial resources and logistics. 2.5 million over that have not been registered. And these are Ghanaians 15 years and above. And obviously that includes many Ghanaians, millions of Ghanaians who are 18 years and above and deserve to be registered today, or who will turn 18 by next year or 2024. Then according to the NIA, there are 643,403 Ghanaians who have registered for the card but have not been issued with the card. Their cards have not been given to them. Then number 3, there are 541,529,000 Ghanaians whose card, even though they are registered, have not yet been printed. So if you put that together, there are over 3.7 million Ghanaians, 15 years and above, according to the NIA, who don't have the Ghana card. And millions out of this 3.7 million are Ghanaians who are entitled to be registered. And so commonsensically, if you say that these people should only present the Ghana card, which they don't have, as proof of nationality, how are they going to do so?
The NIA says that it can print 2 million cards in 6 months. The finance minister was in Parliament to give assurances to everybody that the money will be provided for them to do so. Assurances
by the finance minister, who promised to pay bondholders by the 21st of February but failed to do so. The same finance minister who said Ghana will never go to the IMF, but we eventually landed there on a stretcher because he had collapsed the economy. The finance minister who cannot provide furniture for over 2.3 million pupils in our busy schools, who cannot even purchase textbooks. Since the introduction of a new curriculum for busy schools, it's been over 3 years. They can't even provide textbooks. The finance minister who cannot pay NAPCO beneficiaries their arrears, their 9 months arrears. The finance minister who cannot pay the SNET pension deductions of public servants of this country to appropriate agencies and owe SNET over 4.5 billion Ghana cedis. The finance minister who is defaulting on our debt obligations because he has collapsed this economy is giving mere assurances to the NIA, and we are supposed to bank our hopes on that.
He mentions a bank. He says there's a bank.
What bank?
He mentioned another bank, Carl or something.
You see, you can even have the money, but technically, having the NIA told us that because of network challenges, there are remote communities in this country where they have not been able to register people on the online server, the online system, and printed and issue them with cards. There are logistical constraints. It's not just about money. There are network constraints and all that. And it is a continuous process. Ken Atifua has said so. It is not a process that has a terminal point. It's a continuous process. And so you cannot bank your hopes on that. Look, the EC says that there is a certain law in Ghana that makes it mandatory for only the Ghana card to be used for purposes of registration. You've heard them say that. They talk about Regulation 7 of the National Identity Register Regulations, LI 211.
I read that regulation, but that's not what
I wonder if these people, what do they take us for? Do they take us for some zombies? Do they think we don't read? Doc, what does that LI 211 say? It's so annoying when people try to take you for granted. What does LI 211 regulation 7 says? It says that a national identity card, Doc, listen to me carefully, a national identity card issued to an individual, underline that, issued to an individual, shall be used for the following transactions where identification is required. Then it comes to say J, registration of voters. So the key thing here is that it is only when the Ghana card has been issued to an individual that you can mandatorily, compulsorily say that you must use it for a certain service. So if you have not issued the card to over 3.7 million eligible Ghanaians, you cannot compel them to use a card they don't have for voter registration. You are seeking to disenfranchise them. And voter suppression is a means of rigging of elections. Look, what is the sense in excluding the in which country in the world? Tell me which country in the world is the passport of that country not considered as proof of nationality? Show me one country in the world, except Jean Mensah and Akufo-Addo's Ghana, that a passport which we travel with as the proof of our nationality will be disregarded, treated as nothing. When Jean Mensah is traveling, not too long ago, he went to Nigeria. What did she travel on? Ghana card or passport? Obviously a passport. That was the evidence she produced at the airport and to immigration officers as proof of her nationality. And she comes and says that Ghanaians, we cannot use our passports as proof of our nationality. Yet the Ghana card, which she says is now going to be the only card which can prove nationality, can be acquired with a passport. So the passport can give birth to the Ghana card, which she says can give birth to a voter's ID card. Oh, but the passport which gave birth to the Ghana card cannot give birth to a voter's ID. Does this make common sense? The guarantor system we are talking about here, she says, is being abused by minors and foreigners. Really? But the Ghana card you are saying is going to be the only identification document to prove nationality under this newly proposed CI if it is passed. Allows for the guarantor system. Section 8 of Act 950 allows for the guarantor system. The law says your family relative who has a Ghana card can vouch for you that you are a citizen of Ghana and you will be issued a Ghana card. And there are many people who have the Ghana card because people vouched for them. And if you lie to officials of the NIA, you can go to prison for that. The oath you swear is an actionable oath. And it is the same oath we have in CI 91 on the guarantor form provided in CI 91. Yet, Jean Mensah says that, oh, as for the Ghana card, which is the best thing to have happened to this country, perfect card, the only admissible identification document as proof of nationality according to Jean Mensah. That one, you can get it through a guarantor system. But the voter's ID card, you can't get it through a guarantor system. Does this make common sense? Now, Doc, finally, the most serious of the wicked, evil provisions in this newly proposed CI that we must kick against is the proposal to make district offices of the Electoral Commission the main registration centers in our electoral system. That is the second thing in the newly proposed CI which is not in the existing CI. These two things are the only things.